Well, speaking of Dune, here's a franchise that ripped off plenty from it, Star Wars. All right, the galaxy far, far away just had a thrilling conclusion to The Mandalorian Season 2. That was definitely the way. On Friday, Season 2 of the hit Disney Plus series came to its end in Chapter 16, The Rescue. Not the end of the series, the end of the season. I want to clarify there. We're going to get into everything that happened in just a moment, but first, I want to make sure we issue yet another spoiler warning, because if you haven't seen it yet, I don't want to hear you complaining after the fact. Every video I do about it, I give you a spoiler warning, but I still see people in the comments saying like, how come you didn't tell me you're going to spoil this? Well, I did. Please just watch it. Anyway, if 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's spoiler o'clock. If you're still here, too bad. Okay, so Chapter 16, The Rescue, seemingly brought a ton of storylines to a close, answered some major questions, confirmed fan theories, and gave us yet another new Star Wars series to look forward to. So I want to talk about the kind of the Jedi in the room here, one of the biggest reveals in the episode. What did you think about the appearance of none other than Luke Skywalker in this episode? You know, we were wondering who Grogu reached out to through the Force on Tython. The answer was perhaps Occam's lightsaber, the most obvious answer of all, Luke Skywalker. So Maud, let's start with you on this one. What were your thoughts on Luke's appearance and what it means for our wee baby Grogu moving forward?
Luke. I was so happy about it. I loved it so much. I was in the same boat where I was like, well, technically in the OT, the original trilogy, we had Yoda say, you know, how few a Jedi there were at that particular time, which was basically Luke and then a Force-sensitive Leia. Now that we've got a lot more canon expanded over to us, it's like, well, actually, it could have been the dude from Fallen Order. It could have been Ahsoka Tano. There's a lot more Jedi out there at the moment. But yeah, it just makes sense that it was Luke. I had a full-on meltdown because when I do prep for my show, The Mandalorian, I like to write notes, and my train of thought while this was happening, I wish I could do a dramatic reading of it, but it is plagued with swear words because there was so exciting. But you know, with the classic hood, the gloved hand, I immediately knew. But what I loved the most was that the best part of Rogue One was that end part where Darth Vader came in and just tore everything up. This was the reverse of that. Not only was it Darth Vader's son, but it was him going against, instead of like the good guys, he was tearing apart the bad guys. And it was just such a beautiful moment in the episode. In terms of what we have in store for Grogu, I'm wondering if it's again going to emulate a lot of what Luke went through. And that was after he trained with Yoda on the Dagobah system. He kind of like, fast forward, there was a time jump. He's a Jedi Knight. I'm wondering if we're going to get that with Grogu. I just want to see a little tiny lightsaber in his little hand. I think that would be the most perfect thing ever. But I also think it's because I don't necessarily want a Mandalorian without a team up of Din Djarin and Grogu. I think that they need to be together. So I think it'll be like, cool, we trained, here he is back, or whatever.
Yeah, because I also don't want to see Grogu stick around long enough for the closing ceremony on Luke's Jedi Academy, which went up in flames after Kylo Ren peaced out. So I'm worried. And also, I think this series has been, for me, one of the defining factors has been this relationship between Din and Grogu, these two kind of people who are... they don't have a traditional family structure. They've been cruelly ripped from that by circumstance and war, and they found each other amidst all this horror and bloodshed. So I hope that they can come back together at some point in the future.
Is Ben going to kill Grogu?
Yeah, that's going to be the final episode, the post-credit scene. He just gets turned into like a little like Sith kebab.
Grogu is a Knight of Ren. What? I mean, I know that they all seem big, but if it's like, you know, a manufactured body and he's the helmet part.
The Knights of Ren are just Grogu clones standing on each other's shoulders in trench coats. They're just, look, we know they took his blood. Anything's possible. But yeah, like speaking of the future of this series, we also have some major implications for Din Djarin, and he has the Darksaber now, which makes him the de facto ruler of Mandalore, even though he wants no part of it. So what do you think might happen with that as we head into season 3 and 4? And it looks like he's going to come to conflict with Bo-Katan. So Trisha, let's chat about this a little bit. What do you think is going to happen next for Din?
You know, that's such an interesting question. After I saw the season finale of season 2, as much as I'm loving The Mandalorian, I was like, and this is where our story ends. Like, to me, that's the button on the story. Grogu's going to go off and train and potentially become a Knight of Ren, with Luke, or maybe someone said in chat, we could get a Luke and Grogu animated series, and that would be rad. I'd be in favor of that, but I feel like maybe this is the end of this story, which makes me a little worried for a Mandalorian season 3 and season 4. Yes, we're kind of set up in an interesting place, but as Maud said, kind of the thing that everyone fell so in love with about this series was the buddy team up there. And if we don't have that, it's going to have to redefine itself. And I think it's going to be hard. They can certainly play on the Darksaber and kind of the politics of where it's going to go from here. But I think the show will have a very different feel to it if that's where they go. That being said, someone else in chat had brought up that Disney sold way too much Grogu merch to have Grogu gone from the series for long. So I don't know how they would, and surprise, he's back right away, and not have it feel manufactured. So I'm a little worried for Mandalorian season 3 and 4 personally. But I'm super hyped for the more recent announcement, which I know you'll talk about in a little bit. So I'm not going to spoil it, Dan.
Well, no, I think that's a great segue. Let's talk about it because in case you clicked away from Disney Plus when the credits started rolling, there is a post-credit scene during which we see a familiar locale, Jabba's palace, a familiar face, Bib Fortuna, and then we see Boba Fett return to slaughter said Fortuna and take the throne for himself. And they announced a brand new spin-off series, The Book of Boba Fett, and that's going to be premiering in December 2021. They also confirmed that Robert Rodriguez, who directed Chapter 14, The Tragedy, where we saw Boba Fett kick ass finally after 40 years, he's going to be executive producing that as well. So I'm curious, Kale, what did you think about this announcement, and what do you hope to see from The Book of Boba Fett?
I want to see how he escaped that Sarlacc pit. I just hope they do some sort of flashback and give us that fully, because I remember back before this all existed, I was dating this girl who her dad had a statue of him flying out and shooting it. And I was just like, yeah, but that didn't happen. So I would love for them to actually make that happen. I'm still not fully in love with Boba Fett. He's still cool, but I've spent so much more time with Mando. So I'm just looking for them to hook me a little bit more with Boba Fett. But yeah, as long as they keep it as intimate as they did with Mando, I think that's where both of these series can really strive, as this sort of intimacy and this sort of small scale stories. I think I kind of got disenfranchised with the giant scale of, giant ships fighting each other with beams and stuff like that. And having everybody's boots on the ground is so much better. I've actually been wondering, I'm asking all of you, and even in the comments, is this also your second favorite thing in Star Wars besides the original trilogy?
Probably. I'd say this has made me like Star Wars again. I was feeling really burnt out by the sequel trilogy.
Not a trilogy.
What's up?
Just trust me. This is my coping mechanism for those last 3 movies. I refuse to call them a trilogy. They happened to release 3 movies that were in a timeline that was succinct with one another. It wasn't a trilogy because that was not a coherent story. And if you just remove trilogy, you actually cope with those movies a little bit better.
By the final 3 films of the Skywalker saga, then, I just felt kind of burnt out by the discourse around it and how it just burnt me out on it. And the Mando reminded me of what I love about Star Wars and giving this more granular take on it. It's part of the reason I was a little disappointed to see Luke Skywalker, because I liked the idea that this was not just about the sort of same 6 characters we've been spending time with for 40 years. It's why I'm so excited for The Acolyte, that show that's taking place in the High Republic thousands of years and hundreds of years beforehand. But I might be in the minority on that. I also wasn't a fan of Luke's CGI in the deep fakery.
I was also not a fan. I have seen better inappropriate deep fakes of myself online than we saw in that episode, if we're going to be fully transparent about it. Kale, when you rank Mando 2 next to the OG trilogy, it reminded me of this god awful tweet that I woke up to this morning. So I follow Cody Rhodes, used to be a big fan, WWE. And this was trending this morning that Cody put out his personal ranked Star Wars things. And It's a thing. So I'm just going to read you the order. And this is from best to worst. Tell me where everybody else falls on this. Because I was like, Cody, I'm disappointed that I follow you. Okay. Best to worst. 1, Empire Strikes Back. 2, Last Jedi. 3, Revenge of the Sith. 4, Force Awakens. 5, Return of the Jedi. 6, A New Hope. 7, Mando. 8, Clone Wars. 9, Attack of the Clones. 10, Rise of Skywalker. 11, Rebels. 12, Solo. 13, Phantom Menace. And 14, last place, Rogue One.
Ooh.
My teeth hurt.
Your soda's too cold.
I was like, what are you even thinking, Cody Rhodes?
That's, you know what? I love that everyone really does take something unique from each of these. I mean, we were talking about, is Mandalorian sort of the best thing that we've had since sort of a good set of movies? For me, what's exciting me the most for the future of Star Wars is that we are kind of doing something that we've never really done before ever. And that is focusing on characters that were made in the animated universe, in the animated shows, and bringing them to life. So we are coherently telling a story with both animated and real life characters, and that's like simultaneously becoming one. That is exciting. And what's really cool about the Book of Boba is that he is technically an original trilogy and a prequels character that we have seen in such capacity. Not so much the OT, he was more symbolic than anything, but then you got his backstory all throughout the Clone Wars animated series. He teams up with like this ragtag bunch of bounty hunters, and that in itself is really iconic and awesome. And then, you know, he's one of the, you know, he's the OG clone. And so you know that every single other clone that was out there through the Clone Wars history was a version of Boba Fett. And so I love the expanse that provides, especially with dialogue from someone like Bo-Katan, who casually mentions that Jango Fett is not his father, it's his donor, and the fact that she's heard his voice across the galaxy. It's those little bits there where we're like, yeah, we can really expand this without it being a Skywalker saga.
Yeah, do you like Boba Fett better than Mando? Ma, do you like Boba Fett better than Mando?
So Mando's if I can use D&D alignment here, because I think Mando's starting to be like lawful neutral in the sense where it's like he follows his code and he lives by his code, whereas Boba Fett is chaotic neutral, and seeing him, spoiler, sit atop the throne in Jabba's palace is exciting for me. So I think by Mando living within the confines of his own sort of like code, he's not as exciting, but he does represent something that we've never ever seen in the Star Wars universe, and that is a good father-son relationship.
Yeah, it's a series predicated on genocide and daddy issues, and it's nice to see finally a good father figure appear after 40 plus years. And with the Book of Boba, I'm hoping that this can be kind of what Star Wars 1313, that canceled video game, was going to be. And that is kind of like tales of a bounty hunter in like the seedy criminal underbelly of the galaxy far, far away, because it seemed like Mando was going to be that at first, but it quickly veered more towards that like kind of lone wolf and cub territory, which is fantastic. I love that. But I'm also looking forward to seeing Boba stake out his claim as the newfound like crime lord of Tatooine. So we shall see what happens in the weeks and months ahead. I'm very excited to see that. We just have to wait until December 2021. In the meantime, you can always revisit the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels on Disney Plus. And I think they do a fantastic job of fleshing out a lot of these characters and delivering on the promise of the prequel trilogy, something that was cool on paper, but poorly executed as a film trilogy in terms of telling the scope of the story. And I think it's made better by those animated series. But anyway.